Imagine you're rolling through a way station in Wyoming. Your paperwork is perfect, your logs are clean, and your equipment is tight. But the driver in the lane next to you, someone who has been running the same routes as you for months, is suddenly ordered to step out the cab. His truck is plastered with an out of service sticker, and he's told he can't move another inch. The reason he can't speak English. Over the last 31 weeks, this scene has played out over 13,000 times. Since June 25th, 2025, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has been on a blitz that is shaking the foundation of the industry. The headlines are screaming 11,000 plus drivers removed from the roads. On the surface, it looks like a massive win for highway safety and regulatory compliance. But as I always do on this channel, I have to look past the surface. When you dig into the actual data, the numbers that the DOT and the mainstream media aren't highlighting, you realize that the math is not math. This isn't just about a language barrier. This is about a systemic failure in how our laws are enforced, a massive loophole being exploited by chameleon carriers, and a regulatory game of cat and mouse where the mice are winning. On this video, I'm doing a deep dive into the English language proficiency or the ELP violations to show you what's really happening on the American highway. Watch the full video, and once you're done, click on the link in the description box for the full article. To understand the ELP crisis, you have to look at the map. In the world of trucking, where a carrier is domiciled or based, it's supposed to be where the oversight happens. But the FreightWaves data reveals a massive geographic disconnect. Nearly 60% of all ELP violations in the country trace back to carriers based in just 5 states: Texas, Florida, Illinois, California, and Ohio. Think about that. 5 states are exporting the majority of the drivers who can't meet federal safety standards. But here is the kicker: the states where these carriers are based aren't the ones doing the enforcing. Take Illinois and California, for example. These states account for a massive chunk of the violators nationwide, yet they issued almost zero ELP violations within their own borders. They are essentially letting these drivers out onto the national highway system and letting other states deal with the problem. And then you have Texas. Texas is a beast. Texas domicile carriers have racked up over 3,300 ELP violations nationwide. But Texas itself has only written about 1,300. This means for every one driver Texas catches at home, two more are getting caught in other states. What we're seeing is a relay race of noncompliance. The home states are looking the other way, while the pass-through states are left to do the heavy lifting. If you want to see where the actual war is being fought, look at Wyoming, Arkansas, and Tennessee. These states have what we call a sky-high out-of-state rate. In Wyoming, a staggering 99% of all ELP violations are issued to carriers from somewhere else. Arkansas is at 98.5%, and Tennessee is at 95.7%. These states have become the filter for the American supply chain. They aren't catching their own local drivers, they are catching trucks that are trying to cross the country. But this raises a massive question for every owner operator watching this. Why are these drivers even on the road to begin with? Federal law is clear. To hold a CDL and operate a commercial vehicle in the US, you must be able to read and speak the English language sufficiently to converse with the general public, to understand highway traffic signs, and to respond to official inquiries. If a state like California or Illinois is issuing CDLs or allowing carriers to register without verifying this basic safety requirement, they are putting every other driver on the road at risk. When a driver is in Wyoming gets pulled out of service for ELP, it's not just a Wyoming problem. It's a failure of the home state's licensing and oversight system. Now, we get to the part of the data that should make your blood boil. This is where the math stops mathing. The FreightWaves report uncovered carriers that are racking up a volume of violations that is physically impossible based on their DOT records. Listen to this. One carrier accumulated 159 ELP out of service violations in a 3-month period. You would think that's a massive fleet, right? A company with 500 trucks. Well, you're wrong. According to the US DOT record, this carrier reported only 2 trucks and 1 driver. How does 1 driver get 159 out of service violations in 90 days? They would have to be inspected, shut down, and caught again twice a day, every single day for 3 months straight. Another carrier had 88 violations with only 2 trucks and 2 drivers. There are only 2 explanations here, and neither one is good. Either these drivers are being caught, put out of service, and then immediately jumping back in the cab to keep driving, effectively ignoring the federal order, or more likely, these companies are ghost carriers. They are operating dozens, maybe hundreds of trucks under a DOT number that claims to only have 1 or 2. This is a massive fraud. It's a way to dodge insurance, avoid safety audits, and hide from the FMCSA. And right now, the system is letting it happen. In this industry, out of service is supposed to mean the wheels stop turning. It's the ultimate penalty. But the data suggests that for a certain segment of the industry, an OOS order is just a temporary timeout. The report documented a single truck that was inspected and placed out of service 5 times in a 3-month period for ELP violations. Think about the insanity of that. An inspector finds a driver who can't communicate, slaps an OOS sticker on the door, and tells them they can't move until a qualified driver arrives. Then, a few weeks later, that same truck, likely with the same driver, is caught 500 miles away doing the exact same thing. This proves that the current enforcement mechanism is toothless. It's a slap on the wrist that carriers are simply pricing into the cost of doing business. And why wouldn't they? If you're a carrier based in a state that doesn't enforce the rules and you're running a ghost fleet that the FMCSA isn't auditing, a few roadside violations are just a minor inconvenience. You just keep trucking until you get caught again. This is the chameleon carrier strategy. If a DOT number gets too many violations, they just shut down and reopen the next day with a brand new number, new paperwork, but the same drivers in the same trucks. So why should you care? If you're a professional driver who follows the rules, why does the ELP crisis matter to you? It matters because of unfair competition. When these ghost carriers operate outside the law, they are cutting your throat on rates. They don't have the insurance costs you have. They don't have the compliance costs you have. And they are undercutting the market by running a shadow fleet of drivers who aren't legally qualified to be on the road. Furthermore, this volume of violations creates a regulatory fog. When the DOT sees 13,000 violations, they don't always distinguish between the ghost carriers and the legitimate owner operators. They just see a trucking problem, and that leads to more inspections, more hair test mandates, and more ELD scrutiny for everyone. The legitimate carriers, the titans who are out here building real businesses, are the ones who end up paying for the sins of the ghost carriers. We are the ones who have to deal with the increased scrutiny at the scales because the system is failing to catch the real criminal. The FreightWaves report by Danielle Chafin is a wake-up call. It shows that we are chasing our own tails. Until enforcement at the roadside is backed up by actual consequences at the state and federal level, these 13,000 violations are just numbers on a spreadsheet. We need 3 things to change. State accountability. States like California, Illinois, and Texas need to be held accountable for the carriers they domicile. If your carriers are exporting thousands of violations, your state funding should be at risk. Real data verification. The FMCSA needs to close the loophole that allows a 1-driver carrier to rack up 150 violations. The software should flag that instantly. Permanent removal. An OOS order for ELP should trigger an automatic audit of the carrier. If it's a repeat offense, the DOT number should be burnt permanently. The trucking industry is built on communication. We communicate with shippers, we communicate with brokers, and most importantly, we communicate with the laws of the road. If you can't speak the language of the industry, you shouldn't be behind the wheel. It's a matter of safety. It's a matter of professional pride, and it's a matter of protecting the livelihood of the men and women who do this job the right way. I want to hear from you. Have you seen this out on the road? Have you been stuck at the scale behind a driver who couldn't communicate with the inspector? Do you think the DOT is doing enough, or is this just another example of the math not mathing? Drop a comment below in the comment section. Let's get the truth out there. And make sure you smash that like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you know when I drop another video. And if you're trying to get into the final mile box truck game, check out my free course on YouTube. The link is in the description box below. And also check out the video below on the screen where I talk about the glass eye, why 2026 is the year of the inward camera. On this video, I deep dive into topics like privacy versus protection, the reptile theory that's used by attorneys, and the 2026 crackdown. Once again, I'm Marcellus with Trucking with MBR. Stay safe on the road, and I'll see you on the next video.